Call the meeting to order. Please rise to the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, does anybody have any agenda changes or additions? Okay, being none. The agenda will stay as it is. Public comment? Gene, do you have anything you want to speak to at the moment? No? Okay, thank you. We're looking for approval of our minutes for September 12th, 2024 meeting.
I'll make that one.
Motion made,
I second.
second by Val. Any discussion? Did a good job by our secretary. All in favor to approve the minutes as presented for September 12th, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And actually, this said on the. Oh. I think I'm gonna go.
You could go, okay.
It makes it easy for everybody. I think like on a lot of like whatever, 3 years or whatever, as long as I've been part of the commission. I don't think like wherever I came up with any addition.
Yes, he does a good job. Well, first thing on the agenda was the proposed communication tower site plan. From what I know, Jason met with them shortly after our previous meeting, within a couple of weeks of that meeting, and they want to know if we do a special meeting. Jason said, well, you got everything with you and so forth. She said, nah, no, so they were gonna come to this meeting. And he never got it.
I saw him like about 2 weeks ago. He said that he was supposed to get something before this meeting.
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, I will distribute it before the meeting." I was like, okay.
So,
You mentioned, I just watched the video of the regular board meeting 2 days ago, and Jason spoke there, he said they were not getting anything in time, so.
Okay.
He specifically said, yeah, they didn't have it ready to go for what they wanted at this point, that they wouldn't present tonight, but I don't know, but.
So do you think like it will be brought up?
He said, I think he's intending to do it still,
Okay.
but they weren't gonna do it for this meeting. And that's just what Jason said.
okay, so we'll just table that more or less until we hear back from them. Okay, well, that brings us up to our short-term rental property ordinance that we've been working on. My thought was, I sent you some information, that I thought we could send up to the county or. Basically, I'd like to see them commit to us, yes, we want it, and no, we don't. And have some of their input. I don't know, Terry, you might have they discussed it much or?
Not too much. I think the big thing is you're waiting for the new board to come, which will be December. Because there's a lot of things they want to vote on, but they said, let's wait until the new board can, they have different ideas than what the board is now. So, but they still have thoughts that we should have something right.
Okay.
Like how detailed, I don't know what their thoughts are.
Well, I guess basically, does anybody has anything they want to add, a comment, or think that, you know, we need to add in there now that I can put that into a report and we'll send it to you.
Well, I sent an email, I think you guys saw that, it was just a couple things, and I don't know if it's our role or it's the township board role to look at the enforcement mechanisms of this, you know, so you know, in terms of whether actually gonna be an inspector to check out the property before it's rented, if they have all the, you know, requirements we have or not.
It's not there for me.
Yeah.
Let's take them one at a time.
Okay.
So don't lose your thought.
Yeah.
When me and Greg met with Roscommon Township and North Township, they are both working. If you look in the example ordinances, or your ordinances, what their premise is, they lay out the criteria that the rental has to meet. And then the rental operator has to sign an affidavit that they understand and will, their property complies with this. In other words, they're making them commit to that, that they've done their due diligence, they got everything done that township requires. And then there's a penalty if they don't do it. But they're basically putting the onus onto the owner and not having to go through the process of having inspections. So by granting the license and all that, the owner's acknowledging everything that's required and saying they comply. If they don't comply, that's when the penalty kicks in, the license revoked and all that sort of thing. So we're not doing it, they're not doing inspections. And it makes sense because it'd be a huge cost.
I know we probably don't have the staff now, you know, I mean, I know we don't have the staff now, right, to do it, the township building. But I mean, I'm new and I'm not trying to upset the apple cart here.
No, this is good.
No, but I do have a little experience, I have rental property downstate, and I have to have it inspected. I find that it's valuable, they'll see things you know, think it's up to date, and it may not be. So I am based a little bit on mine, and I understand downstate, there's, you know, it's different. They have larger staffs to do this, and that the application fees are significant enough that I think take a pretty big chunk of the, you know, the costs involved in that, but. That's just, I wanted to have that input, it's kind of thing I think at least with the board understands that there's discussion about it, they can take the direction they want to.
Now, the township does have a long-term rental.
Yeah.
And I looked at that too, because that was my first decision when we started this process months ago. Was, you know, at the cost, how we can do inspections, should you have a third party do it, whatever.
Right.
And lo and behold, talk to the township and say, we're not doing it, we're putting it down to them to comply, and if they don't. And I like that.
How they will find out. Yeah, that's
Don't
fine.
apply. Are they randomly auditing these properties?
They will, basically works on, I think, complaints. If they get a complaint, that's gonna trigger an overall inspection.
From the renters
Mhm.
or from the neighbors?
Could be either or. You know, the big one is parking. Sure, you get, you know, too many people coming to the same place and there's not adequate parking. Well, in the application, the owners said that I have this parking and have documented it, sent site plan in and all that stuff showing it. And if they're not enforcing that, then that's gonna trigger, you know, trigger a whole inspection. It's really whatever we want to write in there, but I'm just telling you how the other townships are handling it. They're not doing inspections in the sense of, I don't know if that, if there's a big difference between long-term and short-term in that, as far as that inspection goes. I mean, would you do the inspection once a year typically?
Yeah.
Good.
If I could, you know, I think the long-term stuff, when they actually did the,
Yeah, a few years ago.
the working thing, it was a separate group, and that's one of the things I had here, so we put our, you know, recommendation forward, and they decided they want to go with it, is it, just come back to us, because it's actually a whole separate ordinance. It's not part of the zoning ordinance, which our stuff goes under. You know, we've got, you know, it's relevant to us because the planning stuff, you know, for the township wants to look out for that. We can tee up things and do things as directed, but that one was a pretty involved process for a period of time. And I recall is Brian Hill at the time, he was police chief, and the fire department police chief. Things. Anyways, they were involved in that. There was a special whole little committee that actually drafted the thing up. And it all meetings of planning, it's kind of like the septic ordinance, or the sewer system stuff that was done separately from the planning commission. And previous conversations with Brian Hill, as the police chief, he always had, and then when I came in here, when he first took over last spring, he talked about like the septic ordinance, some of that stuff they wanted. His concerns was, you know, let's kind of see how the stuff is flushed out with Lyon Township. You know, we want to, whether we do it or not, you know, not for sure. But his big comment was the whole thing about enforcement. And even, you know, he didn't want to, he has opinions on what, you know, some of the things, maybe some the issues that will be potential problem points for Lyon, how to deal with that. And one of his things is for the enforcement stuff, the thing you have to look at is from a budget perspective. Because what happens if you do stuff to do that and then you get sued, you have, you know, does the township have a certain amount of, you know, stuff in the coffer that, I mean, one case could blow the whole budget for the township, depending on how egregious or something like it might be, or the outcome, you don't know. But based upon that, I think that the police department here has always been in tune with enforcement stuff aspect, and then they're going to want to be involved in this stuff right here. And as Jason said, they have issues about, hey, you know, the reality factor, if you put something in place and can't enforce it, then where are you going to do it? You know,
Right.
do you really need to do it at all? If you're not, don't do something, you just got to put it up there and not even follow it. That's
Right.
ridiculous. It's a waste of time for everybody, and then it also it's.
We have some of that around here.
Yeah,
And so that was really my thinking.
yeah, but my point there is just Brian now being as the supervisor now, long-term, he can, you know, he's gonna have this stuff and be willing to come forward with new areas. And in the past, he's shown that enforcement issues is consideration that he has taken and brought up in meetings in his previous position as police chief. And I expect he would do the same for this.
Okay.
I'm putting words in his mouth.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't. It's gonna be taken in there and it's gonna be a big issue, or
Okay.
it's gonna be an issue consideration.
Good to know. And that, I mean, and maybe it's as simple as, you know, a complaint or an incident could trigger, and it's, you know, actually, you know, instead of having automatic inspections, that a complaint or whatever could trigger one, they could go through. But otherwise, I don't know what would get you in the door to see if they have smoke detectors.
And that-
You know.
And that may be something that you actually put in the ordinance itself. Or the committee, when they do that, they address that up front. Maybe there's some kind of little addendum that's attached to the ordinance.
Mhm.
And, you know, I don't know if they talk about enforcement stuff in these ordinances here.
Right.
It's always the police department stuff,
Yeah.
but at least. I would think, and even make recommendations that if they do that, if we send it forward and they want to move forward to it, that it's just not take our thing and, you know, look at it one time and, you know, make final changes to it and they have a public hearing itself. It's just, I would recommend they put a committee together and it would stretch it out for a little bit, but.
Makes sense.
One of the things, Tom, that, for the letter and stuff you put out that wasn't on there, that make a recommendation you put in is that we just basically maybe a little paragraph, a couple sentences that about the public input to date. You had the letters and stuff printed out, but that we make a special on the letter that we give them saying we have had limited input at this time with the public because we haven't, you know, it hasn't been out there, but we got some initial comments at our last meeting for the first time. And there has also been some, you know, email correspondence and their concerns from both sides, people that would like to see it and then people that don't want to see it. And then some of the questions are asked why, you know,
Right.
and just maybe, you know, put something there that says, okay, you know, doing this, it's not, and the board knows it already, that there's gonna be people for and people against it. You know, that's standard, but at least put that in writing for, and the point, like last time, people actually had, you know, seen the copy and I didn't. Of the draft, it sounded like.
It was online before the meeting.
Yeah, and I didn't, and right now, I couldn't find it online, I don't know how they got it, I'm not saying we posted it, but it was like, we just started something. And I'm all for putting the stuff out there, but the point is, you know, people are like complaining, and it's like, wait a minute, I didn't see it, I'm the secretary.
It must have been online. that
Yeah, well, actually,
somebody-
before my first meeting, I looked it up and it was online.
Yeah, the question is, how did you get there? So many people posted here or something, and I'm not saying that the public shouldn't have it, I'm just saying I wasn't aware of it. And when you start drafting something for the first time, and then you come up there, and it's that endpoint, I just get concerned, and one of the, you know, comments the public citizen made, you know, on the board meeting, the last couple, that it was all related to the sewer stuff with the GLOA was, you know, I want to see public, you know, transparency and documentation and when things are posted and how often and stuff. So that's stuff that I wanted just to point out in the letter, there has been some limited input this time that we haven't been proactive about putting it out there because we're so in the early stages, but there's been both positive and negative support for the thing, and we expect more of both in the future. One, if they do go forward with it.
Okay. You have something else for that?
The only other piece was, I know there was a little discussion last minute that there probably wasn't a need for a septic inspection. And I am just concerned, I have a very active Airbnb subbing houses for me, so I watch it all summer, and it literally has. I never see less than 3 families there all summer long. I mean, it's 8 cars, it's a very active one, and I just think I see it that full all summer long. I can't believe there's not some stress on that subject, you know. And the other thing is, I know so many places around here. I have 2 neighbors who just recently redid their systems, and you know, they didn't realize that their gray water wasn't going into the, you know, it was just going into the ground, and the drywall wasn't going into it. And I think we have a lot of that around here. We have not, my view just is, it's good information to have. It's good to know anytime we get a chance to have an inspection of the subjects. I think it's a great idea. Now, I know that maybe there's an ordinance coming down the pipe someday that there will be a septic inspection, maybe it needs to be delayed to that, but that's just part of my belief. That's good data to have and see how many systems out there that are actually, you know, to code.
Yeah, when I did my research on this, I looked at some of the ordinances that East Bay Township, so, you know, Traverse City area, Acme, see what they had, because, you know, it's a much more prevalent.
Sure.
These kind of rentals and stuff, and I think I might have been East Bay Township, I can't remember exactly. They did have a little statement about septic system, but it was more that they were requiring that information about septics, how they're basically how they work, you know, not a big narrative, but just informing the renter that you're on the septic system and you can't just do anything you want. It's not a sewer system. And so, you know, some of the ordinance has addressed that and a little bit, you know, more informative, don't do this, and because the overall lighting guideline that I picked up on this is when you talk about people that are for and against it, an ordinance is on the legal end of it. What you need to watch for is they're saying you can't require anything that you don't already require. You know, the residential zoning requirements. You can impose more conditions on these people just because they're running the property. It's a fine line there. legally wise, on what you can require them to do. You know, if you don't require everyone to get a septic and stuff, then you might not be able to require these. Just because they're around. So that's just, you know, we got something we just got to keep in the back of our mind and, you know, run that through that filter and say, is this. Otherwise, might end up with a little challenge on it. But I'll put that comment in there, you know, that we consider
That's
this
fine. Yeah.
pros and cons, you know, that's what I'm looking for. I want the board to have as much information as we can give them. And then they can wrangle it out a little bit.
That's perfect, that's all I was thinking.
Yeah, and I believe from the septic, so it's in kind of. A few years ago, I just moved to Michigan. And I was surprised to find out that Michigan is pretty much the only state in the country that doesn't have regulation, septic regulation. You know, on the-
Well, we do, but we don't have state law.
Right.
We have a uniform one, that's each health department kind of. works
On
their
their
thing.
own, yeah.
To a degree. And there are bills for that, but they haven't gone anywhere. They might in the next session, but who knows?
Thank you, yes.
Another comment just on the draft portion. And I didn't know if you wanted, we're planning on going over the draft again or the bullet points or just take them, but. I mean, there's some things I disagree with and stuff on there for details, but I don't think here's really the time and I mean, there's things that. Debatable stuff. And it kind of what you just alluded to, which the solutions thing you put out about having things more restrictive for these, when you got in things like noise and parking and all, you know, we have those things that exist already.
Right.
And, you know, if you're gonna try and enforce them, you know, be more stringent on them for those when other people that, myself included, that may not, you know, follow things exactly, or that, you know, there's lots of people have lots of people up for occupancies and that kind of stuff. So I wasn't gonna argue any or all that stuff here. I was just thinking that there's a draft that I think it's good to go up there as an example, and then whatever some of the things may or may not be, you know, addressed or changed if they did one.
Yeah, that's what I said, we'll just give them the whole pot and see what they like out of that, and make sense to them, or they'll come up with questions. But I just thought before we got into all and tried to make it a perfect, detailed ordinance. And then you send it up and they tear it apart. I'd rather see what they think, you know, what they want, if they agree with the preliminary. Because basically our preliminary draft ordinance that I created is following Markey, Roscommon townships. And, you know, big way, Lyon too. Lyon's, if you start looking at them, they're almost word for word. Lyon does have one section in there that is not in any of the other ones. Yeah, Markey, or Lyon Township, if you look at section 6 in the draft ordinance, our draft ordinance, under it's section 6 is regulations. And I don't know if you've looked at lines. Ours is basically a paragraph. Stating that, at all times will comply with the following requirements and conditions. Regarding occupancy, safety. Talks a little bit about the septic. Parking. You go to line and there's this. It's basically a page long. And I think they're saying the same thing, they just are being way more wordy about it. And that might be a good thing, might not. But that's probably the only deviation between Roscommon, Markey. Well, Denton's that way yet. Is that paragraph under regulations that they went into a lot of detail. Everything that it's kind of like they repeated me what they've already said in other parts of the ordinance. You can say they can part it all concise in one spot. This is
Hey,
all,
Tom,
it's all right there.
Tom,
Might be a bit, I'll look at that.
Zoom.
Tom, I was wondering if maybe it would be, I understand, I think what I understand, I'm catching most of it, but not everything. But that we're going to then give the short-term ordinance as you've written to the Gerrish Township Board for their review. Is that correct?
Yes, and I was also going to include the surrounding townships too, copies of
Yeah.
those ordinances, so they can look at them if they want and so forth, compare.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that maybe since that one section about regulations was different with Lyon Township, that maybe it could be pointed out to them that other than this one section, a lot of these are similar to the other townships, but then they could quickly peruse the one section and then decide if there was anything in there that they felt was important to include or to exclude, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I'm thinking too. Thanks. You stated a lot better than I do.
Well, I'm in the Ethernet. We have advantages up here.
One question on that regular, I see it says, no campers, rec vehicles, tents, allowed with the short term. Now, our ordinance says, you get a camping permit for a few days. So is that gonna create a problem? I don't know.
I think that's an example of what you talked about being something more restrictive.
Yeah.
And the way I would handle it, put it down, it's like, no, this building property gets X number of camping permits per year. For X number of days. And it could be used for the rental things or it could be used for there, but once, yeah, so that's an example of something that would be addressed that.
What is the current limit?
It's for. There's 1 2-week or 10-day thing, I think it is, and then 3 4-day ones. So you can put them all together. You can't take one of the 4 days, basically like Memorial, July 4th and Labor Day. So if you did in those weekends, you could do a 4 days for that. But if you can't say, well, I'm just gonna do 2 days here, so I'll take those 4, and you can't split them up. You basically get 4 permits. 3 4-day ones and 1 max each, and then 1 10-day one, but you can put them all together. Then there is, I think, another one for like a longer term, 6 or a 6-month period for special cases. I can't remember the one for that is.
If you're building a residence, you can have a loan,
Yeah, okay, there's,
6 months.
like some people.
I think it's $100 or something.
Yeah, so there is, that's kind of a separate thing. So basically it's $2 for each permit, regardless of the time frame. And then you could stack them all together. So you could put 3 4 days and a 10-day together. You would pay the $8 and you could do it all in one window. So here, if they did a rental thing, if somebody came out there, that you could say, okay, these people want to do a camping thing, we've used up 2 of our permits of our 4 for these number of days. We got 2 left, would be one of the campers use it for the people that own the place, that's their, would be their project, but that, again, you need to spell it out, I don't think that can be. And that comes with some stuff, if you do say, well, the purpose of this thing is a special, these warrant special situations. You know, for the short-term rental alone, because you're gonna have a lot more people come in there and it does affect the community. So maybe under that guise, you could have some arguments and some stuff that puts down some stuff. That could maybe be more restrictive, but I don't know how that would marry up with the laws in the state and, you know, what be a. How compelled, but that would be something you would have to go in detail, I think.
Mhm.
At the actual committee that would put the one together.
But in your opinion, what should restrict? But
In my opinion, for the short term stuff, if you're talking camping stuff specifically, how I would do it is they can get their camper permits, whether the rental people use them or not. But they don't get any extra to use. And you can't, I don't think you could prohibit them from using the ones if they meet those standards. And this is, all they're saying, I waive my.
Well, right now, the ordinance doesn't allow the short-term rental.
Are you saying the draft, or are you saying?
is it?
Yeah, I would say that would be something that I would debate, you know.
I think what they're hanging their hat on, and that is you're restricting the total number of occupants based on the dwelling and bedroom sizes and all that sort of, right, number of bedrooms.
So if you have that three bedrooms and 6 people, no matter if you put like 3 tents.
Right. And basically it reads right now that the maximum occupancy for any dwelling is 2 occupants per bedroom plus 4 additional occupants. The use of campers, recreation vehicles, tents, or other temporary dwellings to provide additional occupancy on the premises is not permitted.
And, yeah, that's the way it is in the draft, but that would, again, those are something that I personally would think they're debatable and disagree with, because how do the current people right now, I know my family personally, and lots of people have more than that occupancy there over, especially a holiday weekend. You know, of the owners, they got, you know, it's more than by the book. You know, so I would think that, and that's some of the complaints we've had to, you know, people so far had said, hey, why are you doing something in addition to that, to what you already have? You got ordinances that address those things. And if you're gonna have that, then you need to enforce it in everybody. Currently, for the owners that don't rent.
Yeah, well, that's one of those.
And it's one of those things that open a can of worms, and maybe all of a sudden they go start doing that. You know, you put that in there and then you enforce it on everybody else. I think there'd be a big uproar. Wow, but that's above our heads.
Right.
That's a good one to bring up. Because that's exactly the type of thing I'm trying to flesh out.
Yeah.
And if, I mean, there's a couple of things, you know, we're gonna be debating right now. Okay, the parking, you know, the excess, the camping thing we just mentioned, the number of occupancy, the number of permits. And the total number of permits, maybe there's a number that's limiting for the general area they're in. You know, maybe, and I don't know, but those are all things that I don't think we'd have an answer, and then the board, whoever would, you know, but those are key questions that, even though we put it in there, I think they're gonna be real arguable and.
Well,
my personal opinion, I don't think that the number of permits should be super limited. You know, because I mean, if we make it way too restrictive, people will start doing the shady stuff.
Yeah, and that's something, I think it's, you know, it's not even, you shouldn't even take time to get in there to really argue or debate these things and put a number in there, because if it does go forward, to try to do something. It's just, those are things that are gonna be the long poles and the tents to figure out, and then we haven't had input from the public yet. And I know you can say right now, those are 4 or 5 issues that people are gonna be up there, you know, in public hearing saying, pointing the fingers and, we don't agree with that from both sides and what the numbers are.
Well, that's what I was trying to state in that outline I sent it to them, was, depending on this, the district, you got high density around the lake. Maybe you can't have every house on the block a rental. You know, some neighbors aren't going, accept that, they don't. I mean, I get it, the rental, I think it's fine. But at the same time, you gotta think about a long-term person that's living, your neighbors. And, it's gotta be a little unsettling to have somebody new every other week.
Oh, in some cases, it's every several days, and then,
Those 3 months. I mean, the season is relatively short.
Yeah, you don't know
Yeah,
anymore.
you have- And personally, I like the most of the renters. I mean, they're decent, reasonable people. The only thing, and then a lot of times the issue we're having with, because people, the owners don't enforce the rules. So that's why they come in and they don't follow, common order.
yeah, and the enforcement on that is how would the enforcement people right now, the law enforcement handle that for somebody that owns it, that has those, regular complaints. And the relatives, it's not running it out. So however they handle that, you have to be consistent with that stuff. And it's nice to say you have people come up and rent it. The point when the short-term stuff is you could get a turnover every couple of days or every week. And then everybody comes up there, they come up to have a good time, whether it's to relax and disappear, or whether it's to come out and be really boisterous and, fun. So it's, and for the people that live here year round, or even the ones that want to come up for, brief times, the weekends that are the summertime and so.
Daily basis.
Yeah, I had neighbors that, they go up, well, I'm just gonna borrow your stuff and just on the weekends. Well, that's when the family's up, So everybody wants to be here during the key times and stuff, and some of them want quiet, and some of them want to have fun. And it doesn't matter whether they're renters or they're owners, they can both, you get good and bad for both of them.
Well, it's encouraging that I was reading that a lot of the, hosting sites, Airbnb and the other ones, I don't know all their names, but they have their own rules for that, you have to comply with. If they get complaints, they will delist you or that type of thing. So they don't want to see, bad things happen. And I kind of agree with you that 99% everybody's fine. It's just, most rules are for the 1% that just wants to cause a problem or go a little too far.
Like the guy who bought 2 parcels, like the whole year, I woke up with every other week, or every week, I woke up with new neighbors. Next door. And the vast majority of them, they were decent. Like when the guy buys the 2 parcels and says like, hey, the public easement is for your access to the lake. Well, but he skips telling the partners, for active access, you cannot just sit there and lounge. I mean, when people come over with kayaks and everything, they just, blow up, air mattresses or whatever it is, and they just chill there.
However, that's become, I think that's a whole separate issue that from just use of road ends and public access things that, and I know Ryan Hill is the police chief expressed some opinions about it. I think Higgins, I believe, has the most road ends of any lake in the state.
Really?
And most of those are, a lot of them are like roads, kind of like yourself, where they're small, real small ones. And there's no road going down there. And there's some solution. So when they took the road ends, the hoist and the docks out, from the road ends to the statewide with the public, 156, I think it was, act. Yeah. And anyways, there's a bunch of those things, and it's a lake that use more to get more people, and it serves a turnover, which there has been an area on the west side of the lake and others, where it's kind of a turnover. I classify it as you go from what I call are sub-users, meaning the older people that aren't using as much or they're not as proactive in their place. And then the places eventually they get sold and new people come in, more energy, then they become quote super users where people, especially the first couple of years, almost every weekend with lots of people and extra cars and boats and stuff in there. So there's this ebb and flow and seems to be about every 15 to 20 years. And we've kind of gone, over the new thing, period in the last 15 years since I've been up here around. And you get that and then those will stay in and the lake's grown and so you get some ebb and flow and those are things that as more people come up, now more people retiring from the urban areas, so want to, urban area, do stuff, take the trees down, but more yards and fertilizer and stuff, not like the rural folks. So there's a new demographic and stuff that's slowly evolving and as things change and some people like it, some people don't. And I believe those things are going to become to the forefront with a lot of issues, how do you handle that? That
Was anybody getting more thoughts?
Greg,
You'd
no,
like to see?
Greg raised his hand on Zoom.
Hi, I just wanted to weigh in a little bit on this discussion because I think it started with, are there reasons that we have to make exceptions for Airbnbs or Airbnbs, whatever these are, because of typical households having the opportunity to do similar things. But I want to go back to Brad's point where he said there's 3 different families in that house every week. And I think that's the reason that we're talking about this, is because that is the rule and not the exception in some of these short-term rental places. So what we're trying to do is kind of preserve the, in renters' terms, it would be the quiet enjoyment of the citizens who live here year-round from the things that are exceptional and happening repetitively. So although the case can be made that once in a while someone in your neighborhood may have a lot of people at their house, it's not like every week. And so that's what we're trying to protect, I think, is that there are people who are being, in a way, like kind of abused in their neighborhoods because of the various people that are occupying houses on a regular basis. So I think that's what we're talking about here is let's do something different because there's a different situation. And if we have to get in and try to regulate it a little bit, it seems like the other people who have done that have found success at doing that. There doesn't seem to be a lot of complaining, at least that's what I heard in talking to different townships about the fact that they are regulating it. And so I think that's where our concentration needs to be.
I agree. I don't disagree. I bring your stuff up.
Right, I do agree, and in addition to that, we're not trying to preserve it just for the people that live here year round, but also for people that come over and visit this area, for the renters themselves too. Because not everybody comes here to party.
Right.
In my opinion. I mean, a lot of people that come over and they just want to have peace, they just want to have, they just want to get away from the big city and enjoy the nature, enjoy the lake.
So in a case like this, it's kind of making the situation more normal, so to speak, as how people would expect to be living in a single family residence, rather than the abnormality that's occurred with these short-term rentals and so many people so frequently changing. So I think that's the reason for our discussion, and that's the reason that these other townships have done this. And I think that that's important to the community.
Agreed.
Yep.
Anything else you want me to?
No, I think, that's a very good summary.
Yeah, so you're gonna include these attachments that you sent us with these different things in the facts, then you're also gonna include the other example ordinances from other townships.
Yep.
And then put a couple extra blurbs or a paragraph or two addressing some key points.
Exactly, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send it all to you first. So you'll have another opportunity to, edit or, point out something I missed or something you don't think it should be in there, So you all get another chance to look at it and then, you just send it back to me and I'll compile it again and take another look and then we'll send it off to them. But I just think we sit here for meeting after meeting and not come up with the ideal thing. Let's get their input up front and save us some time.
Yeah, just get there and get the directive from down there.
Okay, well, if you think of something off meeting,
So,
just send
do
it.
you want to do like, each of us just will pitch it your way, or do you still want us to have like a group discussion?
I don't want to try the group discussion. I kind of just, the more I thought about it, the more I go, how am I gonna manage that thing? I know you can and all that. But it would just, I think if you guys would just send me your ideas, I'll compile them and send them back and you'll all see everybody's.
Okay.
Or when you send an idea, send it to everybody. Don't just send it to me.
Right, and you're talking just like,
Because your thought might spark the thought.
Right,
You know.
that's why, because I mean, that, like.
yeah, I think
It help each other.
you weren't necessarily talking about edits to the draft, whatever you're talking is. Here's a couple bullet points you could put in the letter itself to the board, and we're all, I think, in general agreement that.
Yeah, I mean,
You're gonna go forward with that, we put it to them, we agree that we've got something here, let the board take it, and just a matter of the verbiage, it needs to go in the letter that.
yeah, I mean, if you see something in the draft that you feel is questionable or whatever, yeah, identify it. And,
I'm comfortable just giving you some bullets and then letting you make the decision, it's like you did, minutes, the final thing.
I think
Do that and
it's
send that.
still not going to be the final thing, yeah, because if this is just.
No, this is just the initial notification to the board, so it'll be final with the board, but it's gonna be brought up again, whether we.
it'll be basically a summary of everything we've learned.
Right. Where we're going to be here.
Pros, cons, all that stuff. I mean, our situation, I think, is unique. I mean, Markey has their thing, our township's somewhat unique because we own half of the lake, we own half of the lake.
Markey has, septic,
And,
or sewer.
and yeah, so they're totally different, and there's each township that its own idiosyncrasies and it may come to play and it may not. It may not be an issue. Okay, sound like a plan?
Yeah.
Sound good, Greg?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Like I say, if you haven't, take the time to read Lions ordinance and just kind of compare it to what we've got.
Is that where it is final?
Yes. Now, I will say, when I was doing my research on especially the larger townships, they've had this in place for, 3-4 years, maybe more, I can't remember exactly, but they had several amendments. It was a living document, it's, this is gone and this is in place, so. Not looking for perfection, but we'll get us started with.
I'm sure I'm gonna.
The biggest advantage we have as a township is we have a police department.
Sure.
So enforcement is a little easier. Because when you would say, Jason, he doesn't want anything to do with enforcement. Some people some townships have their zoning administrators and stuff doing that. And it's okay, moving on. Anybody look at that? Compatible renewable energy ordinance that was distributed at our last meeting, I call it CREO.
Is that this one right here?
No. It was came with an MTA alert What it boils down to is. There's a public act. 233 that sets up a process. Where an applicant that wants to do a large. Renewable energy project, whether it be, I guess, windmills or solar. It allows you to have the local government and have zoning that would apply to those situations. But it's pretty darn convoluted, involved, it's a big deal. And if they find that your ordinance isn't totally correct, you could be fined. The township could be fined, and you can have to pay the applicant money because the time they spend on trying to apply your ordinance. I'm not explaining it real well, but yeah, that was you held that up. That was a sample ordinance that you opened, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a sample one that MTA sent that we could create.
Yeah. And just referencing the minutes from last meeting, and to sum it up that. The township does not have. The Creo. And it's kind of, OBE and past, I think the limit to have it in place. Is November, December, whatever. And we're not gonna make it, but basically it sums it up to saying. Immediate issues determine what potential impacts this act could have on Gerrish Township. And what courses of action, if any, should be taken. And we kind of review it, so.
You actually did a real good job of summarizing that in the minutes. I'll read this summarization that MTA sent out. Basically, the township has 3 options available. Should an applicant seek to locate a utility scale renewable energy facility in the township, is adopt this Creo that's in compliance with Public Act 233, specifically section 2268, which requires all applicants to submit their application with the township and only permits the application to move to the state if the township denies the application. For any other reason than the applicant's non-compliance with section 2268. If the township fails to timely act on the application, or if the township improperly amends its ordinance to be more restrictive than 2268, after stating it has a CREO. Or you can adopt a workable renewable energy ordinance, which means you do not have this Creo, but you have a renewable energy ordinance in place that is workable for an applicant to locate a facility in the jurisdiction, which you can't zone them out. You've got to meet these various tax requirements in your renewable energy zoning ordinance. Or you can do nothing and the applicant would submit an application for a utility scale renewable energy facility to the MPSC, and under this option, the applicant must pay the township certain inventor funds that the township can expend to intervene in the state proceedings on the application. I don't know if the township board is looking for our thoughts on this or a recommendation, or
I haven't heard anything about it, no.
I mean, there was a deadline and that's come and gone, but I don't see if the deadline even works when you got such short notice.
And talking, a conversation with Brian Hill, I think it was midsummer, he had mentioned they, at that time, I think the thing had just come out, that he was gonna want the board to look at it, and that we've had. This is the second meeting since that occurred. And so really, it hasn't been an opportunity, and there's not much you could, I mean, to try and get Creo in place. The time to do that work, that's not gonna happen. But the potential here, I think, the way reading through some of this stuff before, is that potentially the states could do something without you, it could, when the applicant goes in there, the townships could technically be bypassed. And without having our stuff in place. You know, even if we did have something in there, it's very likely, but again, it depends on the administration. You know, somebody, you know, one side political thing may be more pushing stuff, another one may not, or things open up. See, but the point is, if the stuff goes through, it's put in there, and if we're totally Xed out of place, what's that mean for here? Does that mean basically you could have a couple areas we deem certain commercial areas that could essentially be clear cut and have this whole, you know, new, you know, stuff put in there. We've got designated lands. I don't know how much, I haven't done the analysis on, you know, what things and how big would things come in there, you know, is it even likely that some of these places would come to this community? I don't know. I think you're seeing stuff in the county, and I think there's a general look from the government in the state as to, hey, up north has a lot of area that's not occupied like the cities and usable. And I know some from the Economic Development Corporation in the county, and they've been approached by, you know, it's one or a couple people about potential solar farm. And I think there's a new thing in the works or something that came up recently. I forgot, maybe with Commissioner Ostergen.
They were looking
In
at
September, that there was something they were in some other, I don't know if it's in our township or in.
It was in
Higgins
Higgins Township, and it's out by the old DNR airport was the area they were talking about doing it. To me, I'm not a solar guy, because I don't think it works well enough in Michigan to make any impact, unless it's on just your resident. To me, a lot of this is the only reason they're doing this, because it's getting all subsidized by the government. We're paying for it, whether we want it or not, whether it works or not. They're not, to me, any hard criteria that this is gonna be profitable and make a real difference, not just be, hey, we're green.
Right, and
So anyway,
you know, from
so
solar,
we should make a recommendation on it.
what would the recommendation be?
Mine would be nothing. I just, you know, this all is above my pay grade. I'm not,
Yeah, I don't think,
I'm not the smartest guy in the room with this, so.
the reality is would we be able to do something for that workable thing? No, do we have the expertise? There's people in the community that have some things, but it's a lot of effort. If you're not hiring a consultant or stuff like that, the reality is the real time it takes to do that, you're not gonna do it.
I mean,
Fine potential thing that maybe would happen, right?
Right.
A lot of work for some, and then you have this, what I don't understand about it, you're limited control over it anyway, right? I mean,
Right. Yeah, the concern I had, the questions I wanted. No, it's just, okay, we can go and see right now, we can look at what areas we have designated as commercial and industrial. And see the percentage and the likelihood of some of those places possibly coming in there. But then the concern is, do they at the state or federal level, you know, via this stuff right here, have some authority to come back and to the community and say, well, we don't agree with your zoning stuff, and we're gonna basically take the properties the way you zone residential or some of the other areas and change them. And I don't know if they have that authority to do so, or if they can. I learned years ago, it doesn't matter what the laws are, they can all be changed, and they can be changed retroactively, you get the right people or something in place. So I don't throw anything on the table, but the likelihood is, and if they do that, then, or if something comes in and they put forward, the state takes over, you know, I don't know. The big concern is, to me, is if you have something like a Goshen plant or something like that that's kind of forced in the community, that all of a sudden your hands are tied and the community may not overwhelmingly not want it. Something like that. But there's different types of energy stuff right now. It's just, the solar is one thing. And
Batteries, right?
yeah, well, and with the solar, you've got, there's a whole bunch of other economic issues. I look at it, if you follow things real in depth about the supply chain, the silver, and the different elements and rare earth materials that go in there. Those are somewhat limited in the markets. And the orders that currently exist for some of those materials right now is being, China, Russia, India, or taking a lot of that. There's only X number of stuff out there in the current orders in the near future. It doesn't match up with available stuff. And so they could maybe get something, they're gonna have it in 30 areas, but those are concerns you have with solar, but the area, they said, it's not necessarily the best areas for solar. There are certain sweet spots and temperature zones, and some of the stuff in Michigan, actually. You think, oh, because the winters and that stuff, we're not a candidate, actually, yeah, we may be, according to some of the experts. When it comes to the wind, I know from stuff on the trip out west. There's a bunch of stuff talking about the wind farms. We've got a lot in the state, but the wind farms actually, they need a certain average speed of wind, around 15 knots or so, generally speaking, for the whole year. I don't think we don't fall in that type of weather climate for something being the wind farms. Then from the nuclear perspective, there are doing smaller, that's coming out now, these smaller portable or buildable reactors, a lot smaller than the corn, you don't need the big power plant like a firm. So those things are just coming out. The military is looking at getting those things in small modular units. So that could be something that you could potentially see here, but you're probably not gonna see that within 10 years, 5 to 10 years at this level. And you don't have the need for it unless some major catastrophe goes. So, but if you're saying you just go people forward, say do nothing, I would recommend. I would support that.
Yeah. Do nothing.
Yeah, I would support that right now. Just saying, we don't have the expertise or the time at this point to do anything meaningful to get option number.
Not at a utility scale.
Yeah, not like that. And we're a small community and it's out of our, overhead from the number of people, the size and the area, the potential of that happening. Not to say that it could.
Okay, are we in agreement?
So what is the purpose of this conversation right now? Is it for to provide it a recommendation to the board?
Yes.
We could basically say to the board, we could draft, I could draft a letter up as an example. To send around to everybody.
You're gonna do that, agree?
Yeah, I'll take, and it's basically saying, we've addressed it, here's a couple of issues at hand. We don't have the wherewithal at this point. And with the expectations of the reality of that stuff happening in this area. To deal with it, and if they do, there's not much we can do about it at this point here. We could maybe, and we basically will continue to maybe look at the thing if there's any potential impacts or see how something like that occurs in other communities if that happens. And then we'll have to.
Well, even with the do nothing option, you still get to participate. In fact, the applicants have set aside money. They do your research and give input back to them. So,
Right, so
the do nothing is not like you're out of the game totally.
Right,
Yeah.
and I can spell that out in the letter or in the recognition to the board, and then.
We can continue monitoring the situation.
Right,
And then revisit this topic like in 1 year or in 2 years and make another decision.
Okay, so we're in agreement and we'll, mark the record there.
Greg, are you on board?
Yes, I'm in agreement to do nothing.
Your favorite thing, Greg.
Thanks.
Go, Mike. 2-1. It is.
Okay. We expected nothing else.
So I was kind of odd about one regionals, first time in like 10 years. Right.
The write-up in the paper was pretty good. Um, Okay, well, then we'll proceed onward with the agenda.
Maybe with the door open down.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob.
Mhm. Mhm. When you're done with those, half an hour. Yeah.
So there's no making a motion now, or we go to the topic.
You think we need a motion then, or just?
You just write the summary, right? I don't.
Yeah, it's just a letter to the board saying we've looked at, we briefly addressed the issue.
Typo.
And there's no
consensus at this
Yeah.
time. This is what we think.
And there's nothing, and basically, our point is to not go forward, trying to arrange the thing and in the process, we're gonna
Good
be,
question.
yeah, we'll be informed in the future. At some point in the process, it just, we wanna make sure if that happens, that we wanna make sure we're not snuffed out of it, and that we try and monitor that if the situation comes up that it's happening, just not let the state go over it. We need to basically take a proactive role. If there's something that comes in our community like that, we then need to turn on or look at it and take a more proactive role in trying to do something and not just sit by and let the state do everything.
Okay, so you're gonna write something up?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
If we need to get in the driver's seat, we'll go with ready. We'll do so.
Okay, under new business, election of officers, don't we do that at this meeting?
No, I looked at it in the bylaws, so we do it in the first meeting of the year.
Yes,
In January.
Bylaws.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
I didn't bother to look. Yeah. That's what we did.
We could take the people.
Because we don't have a meeting, yeah, we do have a meeting in January.
Yeah, January, we don't, right now, not scheduled for December, what we could do right now is ask who's interested.
I just figured I didn't even think to look it up in the bylaws, I just thought we did.
Yeah, because I saw it here in the past, I can't remember everything, so I go back and look at it.
Well, we can.
But it's. And also you get it, we'd have a new member too, because this is Terry's last meeting if we don't meet, or, because they change over in the 20th of November. So the board will have to appoint a new ex officio member. At that time,
Did Osley win?
yes, so
I'm sure you'll take over.
Let's get him back.
Yeah.
He thought he was real sneaky getting me to come on, so he could leave.
I just saw him tonight.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, my. Looking forward to seeing you.
but we.
Well, the thing is, I'm gonna be in Florida for our next meeting. And I know I've talked to Mike, you know, vice president or vice chair. If he's willing to do it again.
Okay, so you're willing to step into his chair?
What's that?
You're willing to do a chair thing?
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
next time?
But
Okay,
if somebody wants it, no problem.
and I'm willing to do secretary again too. At that point,
But when we're online, we can't vote.
correct.
Right. We can comment, and we can't vote, so just, you need a quorum.
That's what I just want to say, like, you guys, I mean, whoever is online is not counting towards forum.
Right.
Right.
Right. And when you,
For anything you need, it's the majority of the members that are here for the motions to be approved. With the exception of approval of a new master plan, which you need to have the majority of the board. So that you would need 4 minimum regardless who shows up. And there was a second thing, I think, with like an ordinance change or something like that, but the other motions we can do with the majority of the quorum. So if you have 4, we could do it 3 to 1 of them.
Okay, so then we'll, at that meeting, we'll do the schedule.
Yeah, January, so yeah, so
So everything, I'm just ahead of one.
look at. No, but it's good to at least have an idea, especially if you're gonna be gone.
I think it's a great idea, good job, Tom.
Okay, so we talked about our master plan, needing to be updated.
Meeting schedule, do you want to do that?
Or we're just gonna do that in January? Is that, that's what I was asking, do we do that in January or do it now?
That one it didn't say. We could, my thinking is that we could approve it in January. But again, just as a preliminary thing, I would say, do it like we're doing right now, meet every other month, the same second Tuesday or Thursday at 7 o'clock, unless there's something that really warrants us to meet. I agree that the next month or at another time.
That's what I was gonna propose.
Okay. Then the next meeting we'll have, but just here the dates and we'll officially make the motion. Okay.
Well, in our current master plan, if you look all the way back to page 5 to 8 in the master plan, it's chapter 5. It talks about there, how to maintain your plan. And the importance of doing so. We are due. So the question tonight, more or less, is do you feel that we need to make some large changes or I guess any changes to the plan? Things have evolved a little bit. There's been some rezonings and different things. And we'll just do a review of the plan. I don't think we're looking for a complete new draft. You know, I don't think there's any that kind of changes.
No, and how we did it last time, that were just a little over 5 years. And I've got the notes even, I've got copies here before you leave. Let me give out to everybody, there was a guide on how to go about reviewing the master plan. And that's why I printed out and I got a soft copy and I can do that and post it online as well. And it's about 10 pages or so. And on that, it also had 2 pages that were, it was a checklist that you would actually do. And that's what we did last time when I got the copies of what we did. Last time we went through the checklist. It's 2 pages, so when these print out, I got to correlate them all before we go, but basically the checklist to go through that to determine if we need to do a review or to do a new change. This helps guide us through there. So my recommendation that I'll give you this packet here, we post it on there, and then at the next meeting, we could then go through this checklist by there, and we just basically each check and make comments, and then from there, and some of that stuff, when you're going through here, you're gonna be saying, hey, we've got the sewer ordinance that's, what's changed since last time? So you've got a sewer ordinance that's possibly a septic ordinance in there, a possible sewer system, you've got possible short-term rental stuff. You've had an increase in population, the state parks increased double the size in South State Park. Lake issues, so there are things that have occurred. The question is, are they stuff that warrants the change? And we have to go through, read this, gives you a guide to do that. And it was pretty good and worked well this last time. And the last time we made the determination, no, it was good, there wasn't enough. There could be some verbiage changes and everything else, and that may, we have had a couple of changes in the ordinance stuff, and then Jason's mentioned that we we've done the pass rate since the last time and that we're looking at doing. Potentially here in the mobile home thing as an example, and some of the technology out there. So there's things that we can document and then we have to collectively make a decision whether or not it was for a bid. If you do it, Tom signed off the last one, so I think you did a full one last time.
Well, that was,
Yeah, and I remember Mike Schultz saying, who was on the board, previously when we did, I think both times, the review, and he was saying, it's not something you do in a matter of a couple months. It's a very intensive effort, you're hiring, it's all come on and kind of want to see it. And you're talking months, lots of public forum input, subcommittees and stuff, and surveys to go out to the community, so it is pretty intensive and stuff. And I don't know that, I don't think there's things that changed enough to want to do a whole new one, but.
no, the one that I was involved with we did a complete rezoning. I mean, our rezoning was totally done and we rolled in the master plan. With that, because it made sense to do all that, because the zoning that's in the book now was created at that time. I mean, there's been changes, but, so, no, it is, that was.
Yeah, so it's just something, I just like, if we do it, it's gotta be really involved, and it's gonna take a lot of time, and.
Well, one of the things they want
It needs
you,
to be done.
they want you to look at is this plan, present valid and current inventory of data. In other words, if you look at your plan, in the appendices, that's where you get into, census data, that type of stuff. Land use and development. We've made some changes, like the big one was allowing the storage buildings in C1, which then sparked the development that's taking place about Pine Hill. And that was a big change, but it was always commercial. We just allowed another use that wasn't allowed in the zoning that was there. So I think we got a little stuff, but. So I just bring your attention to those appendices, go through them and see. If you think some verbiage needs to be changed or added, content. Mike brought up sewers. Well, that's a big discussion now, and that's referenced in your, but it's mainly referenced that there is none. So I really haven't had a chance to do it all. I'm just explaining my thought of the process we might want to adopt as we're going through this. I think the checklist is really important. In that packet I sent you, there should be a checklist from the state. And I don't know how well it works. They're pretty compatible to the ones you got that you.
I don't know, I haven't compared it.
Yeah. So there's a couple of them to look at, I guess. But we should probably just pick one.
But what I also have, and I'll give you tonight, so I got the overall plan. I just gave you the checklist that's actually in, or the overall guidebook. I gave you the checklist that's also internal to the guidebook. I actually made a spreadsheet last time of summarizing all the goals it was the areas in the master plan broken out with the goals and the objectives for each of those goals. So I already put that in a spreadsheet that summarized what we currently have in there. So I'll hand that out to you. And then I had like a little plan of action milestone I did for our review and items last time. That I just basically printed out, and I'll give that to you as well before I leave. So those are just things that kind of help like put that stuff all together. And then
Yeah, basically it's the same one.
yeah, and I think I mailed some of the stuff. I think I emailed to you at last meeting, just prior to the meeting, but I'd like to know what you for. So
When I was on the Parks Department board with Gerrish, we did the 5-year plan, and it was a year.
yeah, I remember
Took
doing.
us
maybe longer than a year to do that. That was a major job.
Yeah, even the public hearings are getting the stuff spread out up here and they put, and you do the surveys and use what Turtle or something they used online.
Yeah.
So and they had mail-in surveys, they had stuff online surveys.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed just in the master plan itself, I think it was in the specifically. Or it was, but it was to the thing that Gerrish is, the community is not necessary, that it was not gonna support things, so to do major changes to the community.
Say that again. You found that in the master plan?
Yeah, somewhere, I think it was the findings and the goals or some of the stuff that, here's things that it supports, that meets it, and then also. And it was like criteria when you approve things for appeal. Everything you do in like the ZBA, the zoning board of appeals, or any of your other stuff. They always say that you need to have. To support your decisions. That you need to actually marry it up with the master plan, and if it's not consistent with the master plan, then the judge has. Inclinations to toss out or change whatever, override whatever decisions you make.
Right.
And you need to be consistent. And anyways, there was a point in there like. Might have been in the guidebook. Read so many things right before. There's a guidebook for the planning commission. Planning commissioner's handbook.
My thought was that everybody would take the time to read the existing one, at least go through it, and then. If you see anything in there that you think needs to be looked at or discussed, for whatever reason. You know, if something seems like there's a line on, or it's changed substantially, that type of thing.
Oh,
And I don't mean just population to, that kind of stuff, we can probably get some staff to look at that stuff and do data stuff off the census statements, from government, but.
Yeah, the thing I was looking at, or the column, it was one of the goals that was stated on page 2.2-3. The very top, number 8, says discourage public services improvements that will have the effect of encouraging excessive growth and development or development at a rate beyond the township's ability to ensure adequate public health, safety, and welfare development areas in the township are designated for such growth. So a lot of times you hear, and even for the county, it's like, you know, everybody, we want to grow, we want to do this, and, you know, improve, but that's not, the point is that it's in the master plan right now, that it's not necessarily the case for every development, and you're not obligated to say, and you shouldn't be looked down upon or saying, no, we don't want it, we want to kind of maintain a certain level, you know, some growth would, so we're, that stuff were like the utility thing or something that could maybe affect some of the communities. If you're not ready for it, depending on all this stuff that comes with it, that you may have, you know, good arguments to use, but currently right now, it's an example of something that's in there that you can reference as discouraging some things or some types of developments, or even going back like with the storage units, you know, maybe there's a magic. There's not necessarily an actual number, but it's like, we didn't have many, now we've got a bunch. And do we need to look at, you know, how we got to see how things go in the future? It's just, you don't need a rubber stamp stuff for future growth without reason.
There's a lot in there. One thought we could do is How long do you guys take to review the last one? Have you any ideas?
I think once you got the stuff checklist out, there was 2 periods in May.
Okay.
2018 or 19, maybe 18. I thought I printed it out. So it was, I think over a matter of 2 months or 2 meetings.
Okay.
We did it. So if you take this right now, go look at it, have it come together, and then we meet here, obviously in public, and discuss our comparative notes. And then we make a master thing, then based upon, then come back next time and let everybody kind of mull over what we thought. And then make a final decision and a motion with the recommendation to the board of the next steps forward.
Okay, I agree. Let's do the checklist first and see how much consensus we got on that and so forth and why, and then we'll take it from there.
And list it up and come up with recommendations and bullets and draft, and then mull over for the month, and then the next one in March. Thumbs up or down and that.
Which checklist, are we doing this checklist or the one?
They're the same.
Okay,
So the one Mike gave you is fine.
okay,
The one that I sent you that's actually created by the state, it's the same thing.
okay,
So,
Yeah, and I think
anyway, you got it.
okay.
yeah, and it came from, this was a master plan guide from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation.
That's the greater clarity, so we're looking at chapters 5 through 8 only.
There is no chapter 8, there's actually 5, but dash 8 was the last page. Just basically look, read the whole thing.
Okay, so, all right.
Well, that's what we're doing, I mean, you got to review it.
No, like, I understand, like, the agenda says.
Yeah.
Chapter 5 through 8, maintaining the current plan.
Yeah, it was, there's only, I didn't put it together, but there's a page 5 dash.
5.8,
Right.
that refers to is in the master plan, it talks about updating the plan. Yeah, so I just was gonna.
Yeah, and then there's several appendices and stuff. And that's held, and one that I didn't ask, Fred, did you get a copy of the zoning ordinance? And the master plan should be in the back of that.
Okay.
And then some other things like the bylaws should have been.
I was gonna ask you about the bylaws before it came tonight, but would they be in this? I didn't see.
They should be in the back, I believe, but I'll get with you offline after the meeting.
Yeah,
And just because the last time, there were several things that, as a new member, want to make sure you've got, and
Yeah, I was thinking the same. thing.
yeah, and then the other thing on there too, we haven't addressed, it was kind of like another kind, was potential training and stuff. Myself and Greg and some other people in the past that had opportunities prior to COVID that the Michigan MTA Township Association and some of the other they have classes that are sanctioned and given out periodically, and there may be a fee or something. Some of it can be done online, but they're worthwhile to go to, for the zoning and planning commissioners and stuff throughout the state. And COVID kind of came in and kind of threw that up there, but it's something now. That's something that at the next meeting I can talk about, hey, here's different training stuff, and then.
I haven't seen much.
No, usually, and what would happen, we would actually get brochures in the board that would get sent to us. And some of that, because we signed up for a meeting, that came through the clerk's office. Saying, hey, here's some stuff that comes down, and Michelle's the clerk, she's been there for I think a year and a half now. And so some stuff, she was still learning a lot of new things and a lot of other issues. So some stuff that gets somebody in there for a while, hey, there's this, and that, here's where you go. And so I'll look into that for the next meeting as well. That would then, supplement stuff, because some of these things it talks about, there's pamphlets we've got about, how you run a meeting, your decision process and stuff, or things to consider about some things we talked about, even the way, dress the meeting. We're a little, we should be going and talking directly to the chair and stuff instead of conversations back and forth kind of a thing. And if you do stuff like
Almost, maybe, I guess.
but there's things like that that are worthwhile in those training things and other packets that we've got 3 new people here that haven't been on, one of these boards before. And could be useful, the same with the ZBA and other stuff, so I don't know when, and they're also mentioned, so again, it's like when you do your annual report, you should also be putting in, you know, like a budget report to the township board as well. And that would include things like, yeah, we expect to have maybe 3 people going through a training class and travel, so it'd be $100 a person for a meeting and, you know, so if we have anything like that, that's something we should also include, and I'll have the draft report for the annual stuff for the January meeting, just to put out there, and then we can approve it at the March meeting.
Okay. So a little homework. Go through the checklist. You got questions? Mike, me, ask. It's been a pretty hectic year. We've gone through a bunch of stuff, I think. So congrats, you made it. Kind of sort of. Any comment from your last meeting?
Are you looking at me?
Yeah, yeah.
My farewell speech? First little update from the township. You probably know that we lost one of our fire people in September. It was a farming accident and he was killed. And he had just become a fireman here in September. Wes, I forget the elder. He lived up on the corner of 100 Maplehurst. He bought that farm up there. So it was kind of a sad thing for the township. Chief Fisher was up there and it was, I guess it was, took a toll on some of them for sure. Blue is Dave Hall is resigning and they're looking, he's at the at-large number. And so they want to get somebody between now and March 31st when they pick a new one. But so he's going to resign whenever they find a replacement. The one name that came up was Jim Kaufman. That's who Ryan is recommending. Gerrish doesn't know what to do yet because they really don't know who he is and what's happening. So that's how it works.
What was the name again?
Jim Kaufman.
Okay.
Is that at large? Is that at large either Gary Shoreline? Okay, so it's not.
Three from Gerrish, 3 from Ryan, and 1 committee. We're still having trouble with the well. Water is still coming. Last I knew of at Tuesday night board meeting, Brian said they still haven't cleared up the problem, so they're working on that one. Our audit, our 23-24 audit came back favorable, which is nice. I guess we're in the black for another few months. And the sanitation fees are going to go up slightly on the next tax roll because our garbage people have upped their rates a little bit. We're on a 5-year plan and it went up like 3% every year. But we're not quite enough to cover the expenses. So at the end of this year, we'll have to renegotiate. So I don't know what to tell you what's going to happen then. The other thing is the township gazette goes out with taxes. And if you want to put anything on here from the planning commission, the only thing it has on right now is just when the meeting's done. But if there's anything special you want to put out there for the public or the ZBA, same with you, just get a hold of Mary Ann because she wants to take the stuff. And other than that, I think that's it.
What was that form you just said?
Just that township gazette goes out
Oh, the
with
newsletter.
yes, township taxes, yeah. And it just talks about the board meetings, the assessing department, inspectors, treasurer's office. So, but if it's something you want to add for the planning commission or the ZBA, they're just gonna hold Mary Ann. The only other thing is I'd like to thank you all for putting up with me for the last 4 years. And I kind of have a feeling that Jim Austin's going to take over my position, so he won't be a rookie. But anyway, thank you again and good luck with all the future.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Terry, for
all your dedication, not just to this board, but to the township as a whole. You've been a valued member of the community for many years,
I appreciate that, thank
and I
you.
hope you hang around for many more.
Well, I will. I'm, I want to back up Tony still as a secretary in the cemetery, because when he goes on vacation, I'll do the funeral. So,
Okay.
so I'll still be around. You need somebody to care or talk to, just give me a shout. I'll be glad to come back.
Well, again, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And you can come and visit anytime you want.
Is there enough
Every
room?
other month.
Is there enough room? I'll come on the off months, February.
We could use a heckler or two.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else have anything? For the good of the order?
I will say something, our storage unit that we approved, we approved that with them black, like a nice type of fence. The one company to the north does have a black fence, the other one does not. To the south.
Yeah, I noticed that the one that was the first one that was just a chain link fence.
Yes.
And that kind of brings up another issue about follow-up on site plan approvals and
Exactly.
and check which
That's
get there
how-
because you gotta look at the landscaping stuff too. And at this
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
it's, so you got the three sites that are approved. The first one, I think SROA from America, they're the ones he's talking about. They're right on the curve. They just put a chain link fence up and I think there's some trees there. And then the middle one hasn't done anything yet. And then the other one, the day after the board approved it, they had the whole place cleared out. So I don't know if they started the day before, because that's a lot of clearing they did.
They've done a good job, seems like.
Yeah, so the thing's up and they're open and that, and their fence looked, I like
Yeah,
the black, that's
Exactly.
the other chain link, and I can't remember, I have to go back and look at what we approved.
Yeah, I would say we need to do that. I mean, it would be Jason, he's got all the documents.
Right. And that may be something too to put down
We're gonna
for,
talk to Jason, see what's what.
it is just for future things for like January, potential topics, to look at, and like the zoning or changes to some of the ordinances or updates for clarification is. That's one is the master plan and it. And then reviewing what follow-up stuff, we've done so many site plans, you lose track of them. And for me personally, being on the ZBA, this year we only had one. To date, usually we had between 10 to 20 a year. And then doing the minutes and that stuff, all of a sudden, when you first come in, you can remember a handful. Now, it's like over 60 or so ZBAs since I started, and we've probably done a couple dozen site plans and this stuff right here, and they're all, my mind, blowing together.
So yeah, that's what I was getting at, is reviewing what we've approved and how we're gonna do that. Got to give it Jason first on that.
I wrote it down.
That's all I got.
Instead, training, stuff to look at next time, I'll get the end of the year reports. Trying to have that draft ready to go in January. And get with you after this right here, Brad. Maybe before you go, we can separate this stuff right here and I'll give you these other handouts and that's it for me.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
I make that motion,
Let me make the last motion, okay?
okay?
Thank you. I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
Motion made, seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We forgot discussion on the motion.
That's it.
I just want to mention that I think this is Terry's last meeting, and I want to thank him because I think he's always been really well prepared and been an excellent addition to our group. But unfortunately, I think he's retiring, and I'm going to miss him.
Thank you, Greg, but I'll still be around the budget. I know where
Thank you.
I know where you live.
Right.
Yeah, we're technically off the record, but the thing has still been recorded, but are you safe there in the hurricanes?
Well, we have another hurricane scheduled for next week, Wednesday. In case anybody's interested in living through a hurricane, you're welcome to come down and sit around with me. I'm not sure what's going to happen yet. I'm hoping it fizzles, but we're almost to the point, having been here for 2 weeks, where we've got the damage from the last hurricane in control. So we're ready for the next one.
I'm heading your way.
Yeah, well, you're going to like it when you get here.
See you Tuesday.
There's piles of stuff all over everywhere waiting to be picked up and removed. So,
Well, thanks, Greg.
and I'm thinking that Higgins Lake could use a good hurricane. We're thinking of getting maybe 12 or 15 inches of rain in one day. And from what my understanding is, in the discussions at the county, we could use about 12 or 15 inches of water at Higgins Lake.
Yeah, that's why they sent the FEMA trucks up South Dakota.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks. That could be in the book, I don't know.
I do not have it. All right, I'll make it.
Thank
Thank you.
That's pretty good.
When you're done.
Hmm?
When you're done, just put it back in there. Yeah. Accessories and